Hello everybody. If you've been following the channel for a while, you may recognise today's car, because 2 years ago I drove it. On a day which was really a Gran Turismo dream, I managed to get together R32, R33 and R34 Skyline GTRs and drive them back to back, having never previously experienced any of them. Though it was the R34 that was really my childhood hero, I have to say the standout car of the day was this, Marc's R32. In terms of interactivity and excitement, there are very few cars I have ever driven of any description that came close to this, and I told Marc not to do a single thing to it in terms of chassis or performance. So, of course, in the interim, he has spent thousands of pounds modifying this car further. Now, this apparently was all my fault, because after I did that trio of videos, I was sent this book called GTR The Journey by a lovely guy called Alexander Kvaritem, I don't know, Alex, and he is a big GTR fan. This particular book was a labour of love, and if you're into not just Japanese cars or GTRs, but cars at all, I highly recommend getting it. As coffee table material goes, this is top shelf stuff. It's absolutely packed with interviews and pictures of people and their cars, those involved in the creation of the Skyline, and also fans too. One such person is this chap here, Mr. Hiroshi Tamura. He was the chief product specialist for the GTR and 370Z, apparently in the industry is known as Mr. GTR, though I think there are a few of those. He was also a product lead in the R34 and R35 GTR. He himself has an R32 that looks very similar to this, and because I sent Marc and the other guys who came out a copy of this book, he read this little paragraph here, which said that Mr. Tamura has had his GTR in many different levels of tune, but what he wanted was a car that was perfectly balanced, with no one single element standing out compared with the others. And his idea of balanced was 600 horsepower, which is what this car now makes. Most worryingly of all, this extra power, previously it was making around 450 horses, comes courtesy of one great big Garrett turbo in place of the twins it had previously. I'm quite a big fan of the twin turbos and their power delivery, and when Marc told me what he was planning on doing, I was convinced he was about to ruin a brilliant car. But he assures me that he hasn't. So, as he's a man that likes to put his money where his mouth is, he's brought the car back to me today, and I'm going to find out if it's still just as good, or maybe even better. Wish me luck. In addition to the big snail, it now has different camshafts, new engine management, a Link G4. It has now been fully resprayed and looks magnificent. Though I've never really been that big a fan of the R32's shape, I have to say this particular example, with its trussed body kit, really does look quite mean. The steering wheel is now marginally smaller. This is 335mm as opposed to the 350 that it had previously. Up front, it also has R33 V-spec brakes, and we'll soon be getting the same at the rear. And the suspension has been changed for some Meister R coilovers. It also has a short shifter kit from Cube Speed, which I must say I really love. It's a ludicrously short throw, but a very, very feelsome one. In some cars, this would be too much, but here it works very well. Beyond that though, it is very much the same car I drove previously. So, what's it like? Here is a little switch which changes the power available to the car. Its full headline figure is 620 horses, but I've currently got it set to WIMP mode, which makes allegedly 520. But to be quite honest with you all, I don't think it's actually making that much in wimpy mode. In fact, the car feels so neutered. I had this whole spiel planned of telling you how great it was with 500 horsepower, then only to reveal that actually it can make a lot more. But yeah, I'm just turning it into full fat mode because that doesn't feel like it was making even 500 horsepower. It felt like 300. Now I'm in full power mode. What's it like? That's more like it, yes. These cars always did need a few revs behind them to do their best work, but with this bigger turbo fitted, I think it needs even more. Previously, from about 3,000 or so, they really started to get a wriggle on. Now, put your foot down at 3 and it doesn't really do, well, anything. In fact, let me show you. They should be seriously quick, even when not making full power. 300 horses in a car like this should be rapid, but this is 3,000 RPM, foot flat. Yeah, it's not really very terrifying, is it? I do love that shifter, and I still love the steering of this thing. It's brilliant. It's a $4,000 where this car comes alive. Wow. Yep. It's got some go in it. It's really got some go. Let's get this turned around, and then we'll explore the rest of the rev range. Compliance is pretty good. I love the massive rear view mirror up here. Gives you a view of that beautiful, quite angular and aggressive spoiler at the back. Though the R32 has never really been my absolute favourite, I do still have a huge amount of respect for it, because this is Godzilla. This is the original. Oh, that cube speed shifter, I tell you what, I love it, but it could get you in a lot of trouble. Now, what's the turning circle like? High CAS on this car, which is the all-wheel steer system these has been removed. It isn't very well loved by the community. The handbrake nearly worked. Oh, this is going to be horrible. Oh no! I'm so sorry, Marc. And we're off again. That was traumatic. Today's orchestra is a full turbo-backed titanium system, and it actually makes a distinctly different sound to cars with the twin turbo setup still intact. Oh yeah, that was about 5.5, and it will rev to 8. It certainly makes the power, but I do have a fear that I'm not going to have very good news for Marc. Before I deliver the verdict though, I need to explore this car just a little bit more. Yeah, sorry. All the flow and rhythm from this car is just gone. Absolutely gone. Let me try and put that into some more concrete words. Okay, so here's what's now happening. The car is only really starting to make power. And when I say starting to make, I really mean it. We're doing 3,000 RPM now, 50 mile an hour, fourth gear, foot flat, 53. There's 60. So it's not quick. It's not really boosting at all. Come 4, and then by 5, it boosts hard. I mean, really hard. So, second gear, we're at 4,000 RPM, foot down, we're doing 40 mile an hour, 50, 60. There you go. You can just about rev out second gear. But you wind up in this sort of weird limbo. To get the car to move, to get it to shift, you've got to get it to at least 4 and a bit thousand RPM. When you've got it there, oh, it really shifts, and you've got to be ready for it, and you've got to want it, because it's got serious pace. Now, it does have the grip to make up for it, and the handling to carry it through a bend. But the problem is, come the end of second gear, you're at the national speed limit. Now, I'm not going to pretend for 1 second that I rigidly adhere to the speed limit at every point of every day. But the fact is, I don't really like to go that much past it because for what I do need my driving license. In many other videos, I've discussed driving a car slow fast, by which I mean not revving it out all the way, but still driving hard. So in my S2000, I'd often drive it and pretend it doesn't really even have VTEC, so change up by 6,000 RPM, which is where the car comes on to power. However, with that car, it does still make power, it does still do stuff, it does still respond, it does still make nice noises, even at those lower RPMs. This is a car which is clearly frustrated with you, unless you're giving it the absolute big one. But then when it gives you the big one, it gives you so much, it's far more than I'd willingly deploy on many roads, even ones that I know. The last Skyline GTR that I drove was the R34, which granted was probably not entirely standard, but about as standard as you're ever likely to get. I suspect the restrictor in there had gone walkabouts and it had a big exhaust on it, but beyond that, the owner hadn't done a thing. That car was beautiful because it had a real naturally aspirated response, minimal turbo lag, and was an absolute dream. This, sure, when you're at 6,000 RPM and you've just lifted off, it responds nice enough. But that's not going to be all that often. Really, really isn't. A while back, I took a naturally aspirated Supra down here, and you know something? We talk about balance, that's the whole reason Marc started on this journey, and actually, I think this car with half the power would be far more balanced, because what it has is an epic chassis that's absolutely brilliant, and you can really, really lean on it. I happen to suspect that Mr. Tamura probably drives his GTR on track a lot, and there, this would be an absolute riot. The issue being, Marc's now spent quite a bit of money on this car, making it look pristine. Inside, it is still a work in progress. You may notice a few issues with some of the trimming. It's not yet complete. However, it is certainly looking a lot better than it did. This means he's almost certain to not want to take this car on track. I wouldn't. And for British roads, I think he's rather done himself in, because the fact is, by the time that this car is coming on song in second, you've already hit the speed limit, and in third, you're well past it, which means actually you can only enjoy this car for the briefest of moments. This engine makes such a great noise, it really, really does, and it's so capable, but it should be flexible too. And of course I love the way that it handles. I like these seats, they're out of an Integra DC2, which Marc also used to own and really does miss. The AC doesn't seem to be working very well though, does it? Whew. I'm enjoying the car, but not quite that much. See, foot flat. This is the other thing. If you want a car for a quick B-road Sunday morning blast, you do need to be able to get past traffic, and that means you need an engine which is going to respond quickly by burying all of that power further up the rev range, where you're just not going to be sat. You know, on any normal day, you're not just going to be cruising at 5,000 RPM. You've hidden it. You've taken it away. So actually, in the real world, this is a lot slower for me than the last R34 that I drove, because the choice here is either drive it pretty sedately or drive it like an absolute loon. And I don't really like doing either of those. I want a nice middle ground. And he had that! Arr! I've no real complaints with the coilovers. In truth, Marc didn't have an issue with the teens that were on it before, but they were just getting a little bit tired. The car is polybushed throughout, and to be fair, it actually rides pretty well. Considering it's a fairly hardcore Japanese car, their roads are notoriously smooth, ours are not. It works better than you might imagine. Heel and toe, really nice. And that's the annoying thing, I want to work this gearbox all the time, it's so nice now. I want to work this engine all the time, I want to use all the different revs, but I'm stuck. I'm being punished because I'm doing 4,000 RPM. 4,000 RPM, this thing should be flying, and oh, now it wants to fly. But now I need to slow it down again, I need to rein it in. I've missed my opportunity. I can't connect this car up in the bends. People keep telling me turbo technology has really, really improved over the last 20 or 30 years. And I do in some ways believe it. I've driven some incredible turbo cars, but equally, it is just a spinny wheel, isn't it? I mean, it's like saying windmills have got better. I mean, it's a big blade that catches air. I mean, how much better can it really be? I'm sure it's smoother and slicker and everything, but ultimately, I think the turbo in this car is just too big for it. Sorry, Marc. This is not the car for me. A big thank you to Marc anyway for bringing his car out, regardless of what I think of it. If he's happy with it, that's the main thing. And of course, a big thanks to you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button, comment down below, subscribe if you haven't already, and even if you have, make sure to check the bell icon so you'll be notified of every single upcoming video. And whatever it is, I hope to see you there. Bye-bye.